Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I paint white roses. And to show them off, I thought I'd put in some blue hydrangeas. That makes a great background. I haven't actually painted the background white. I'm pretending there's a white wall and the vase is standing on a brown table. I have my usual palette of titanium white, primary yellow, raw sienna, raw umber, French ultramarine blue, sap green and alizarin crimson. I've got a 1/2 inch flat and I'm going to do my sketch using raw sienna. I usually use this. It's a nice natural colour and it blends in well. You don't really see it by the time I finish the painting. I've decided the vase is sitting on a wooden table, a shiny wooden table, and I'm putting in the reflection of the vase. I use several colours for the tabletop, not only the raw sienna, but raw umber, a little French ultramarine blue mixed with raw umber, which gives me a very dark, almost black colour. And I like to use alizarin crimson as well, which gives me a glaze effect because it's transparent and the other colours do come through it. I'm using French ultramarine blue mixed with a little titanium white, and I'm just painting a plain background for the hydrangea blossoms. I won't put petal shapes on it this time, and for the base for the white roses I'm using the raw sienna. Odd numbers are more interesting, so I'm doing 3 of each flower. For the hydrangea leaves, I'm showing simple oval shapes, and for the rose leaves, I'll do them in groups of 3 little dobs to show where the leaves will be. I want the vase of flowers to have a little movement to it, so I'm showing it a little unbalanced at the moment, but I'll fix that by putting in some twirly twigs and also balancing the weight of the colours. The shadow will balance the 3 hydrangea leaves out the side. You'll see as I go along. See how the twirly bit on the left of the painting balances out those 3 leaves, and also the darkness, that will be the shade side of the picture, and that will balance out those 3 leaves as well. You'll see. I'm using straight titanium and pulling the stroke of the petals in from the outer edge to the center. They will pick up the paint from underneath, especially if you're using water mixable oils. I'm actually using acrylics, but it still drags in some of the paint from underneath and gives a sort of translucent quality to the petals, which I rather like. For the petals that we only see the tops of, I use a sideways stroke. I don't use a complete stroke for those. And the petals furthest away, I pull in from the outer edge in toward the center. The petals that are closest to us, I do pull in from the outer edge to the center, but the ones that we only see the tops of, I do that sideways swipe. I'm explaining myself twice, but you'll get the idea. You can add a touch of yellow, pink or blue, whatever you like, to the mixture, and that will shade the titanium white slightly. As the paint dries, it dims down, it darkens a little bit, so you always have to go in over that anyway to maintain that brightness. And so this rose won't actually be as yellow as it looks here. As a child, I lived on a 500-year-old farm, and the rose garden was quite ancient, and the roses were beautiful, very soft, very fluffy, very open roses, nothing, no tight buds or anything. And they had the most fabulous scent. And that's the rose that I like to paint. It brings back some good memories. This rose that we view sideways on is mostly made up of sideways swipes. I don't think there's really a full petal in there. This rose is facing slightly downwards, and we see the tops of the petals, really. And it's a little squished by the rose above it. Don't be afraid to add petals or take petals out. It's quite easy to do with acrylics in any case. And I do get to that point sometimes where I think, oh, there's just not enough petals in there. It looks a little simple on one side, and I'll just dash in and add a few strokes. It doesn't have to be a complete petal, just a line, and it will read as a it'll read as a petal. I'm just adding a little pink here just to give it a little more interest. None of these colours will really show through in any great quality or quantity, rather, but they'll just add a tint to the petal as I put in more white as I go along. I painted over 100 rose paintings before I got to a point where I felt anyone else could look at them. And I'm happy with what I'm doing now. I recognize that other people paint roses differently or different styles of roses. You might want to check out some other artist videos of rose painting because everyone does something a little bit different, does a little different style of rose, and you might find something that you like better. When I do hydrangea petals, I paint in groups of threes. I draw two from the outer edge down to the center, and then a sideways swipe for the third, so that you're only seeing the top of that. I'm using a filbert brush with a rounded top to do the petal shapes. It makes good petal shapes, although I always finish off my hydrangea plants with a round because I like the point on the tip of the petal. But I usually do, as I'm doing here, but I usually start off with a filbert brush and I mix a colour that's slightly lighter and do that first, and then I finish the whole flower off with shadow and light. I mix darker for the shadow side, and where the highlight is hitting, I use almost complete titanium white with just a hint of colour in it. I feel I managed to achieve that soft, fluffy look that hydrangea flowers have. When I was a little girl, we had a white hydrangea on either side of our front door, and I used to love that flower. In Canada, they have a plant called a snowball plant, which is quite similar, and that's a very nice shrub too for the yard. It could actually be a type of hydrangea, I'm not really sure. I haven't done anything to the vase at this stage, which is unusual for me. That's usually one of the first things I paint. And I like to get sort of even coverage with a mid-tone colour before I start with my highlights and shadows. In this painting, I forgot all about the vase. So we'll just have to see when I get to that. At the moment, I'm doing the leaves. Hydrangea leaves are quite thick and leathery. I'm putting on a mid-tone, and I'll go in after with a shadow and then again with a highlight. I like to put a reflection in the tabletop. I think it adds something to the painting if there's a reflection, it adds another dimension. I usually make the decision where the light is coming from after I've got my midtones. This painting is a little more completed than usual. But once I put my midtones on, I decide where the light is coming from. And in this case, I've decided on the right. So the left-hand side of the painting will be in shadow. I'm using French Ultramarine Blue, which is transparent, as a glaze over the vase on the shadow side. And I'll also put the same glaze on the reflection in the tabletop. I never bothered to buy black paint. I mix my black from French Ultramarine Blue and raw Umber, which is as near black as you ever want it anyway. And I'm using that for the shadow under the vase. To accentuate that visual of roundness, I pull the paint around in a horizontal manner using a flat. And you can use a dry brush for this. You don't have to put it in water. And that works very well for keeping that illusion of a round vase. I like to put a reflection of a window in a 4-paned window. I always think that adds to the glossiness. I lost the roundness of the vase here somewhere, so I'm trying to correct that. Sometimes not correcting the actual shape of the vase, but correcting what's around the vase can help more. In this case, I'm adding some raw umber, and you can see that makes the vase stand out and helps with the shape a little bit. It's not my strongest suit. I'm just adding a little highlight to the hydrangeas. It's almost neat white, almost completely titanium white. Just a hint of colour in there. I like to take time to sit and evaluate what I've done. There's always something that I want to change, some added darks or maybe an extra highlight. Maybe a leaf is too much and I need to take it out, or I need to add something to it. Don't be afraid to do those things. With acrylic painting, you can always use gesso. Gesso out a patch that gives you a fresh canvas to start all over in that area. I don't say that I'm 100% pleased with every painting, but I usually end when I think I like most of the painting. That's when I declare it finished. I use French Ultramarine Blue and Sap Green for my shadow colour, and I put it on everywhere, almost everywhere on the shadow side of the painting, and also on parts of the painting that are hit by the light, because there's always something that doesn't quite get in the light and needs a shadow. That's part of what you do when you step back and just observe it for 5 or 10 minutes and make those decisions, I suppose. For my highlight, I add primary yellow and titanium white to the pool of green, to that mid-tone, and that gives me a good highlight. And sometimes I will go in with an extra highlight that is plain titanium white, because you know sometimes if you look at a tree or shrub, you'll see what looks like a bright white leaf. And so I do that with mine. I don't always do it, but most of the time I'll go in with that extra little highlight. You can do those centre veins with a light colour as I've done here, but I also like to use alizarin for this job. I think it adds a touch of brightness to my painting if I can find places to put alizarin in it. It's one of my favourite colours. And I feel it adds a little punch to the painting if I can get that in there somewhere. And in this case, I've put it in the veins and I've put it in the tabletop. Quite often I use it on stems when I'm painting roses. And if I'm painting pink roses, it makes my base. In this case, I think it adds a little punch to the leaves. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm adding turquoise blue and to my vase. And I'm doing that not because it's really needed, but just to add a little brightness, a little something different, just a little charm for the eye. I think that does the trick. I'm going to use this dry brush. It's a Taklon brush, quite soft. And I'm going to pull that paint around in a horizontal way, just to sort of blend it a little bit. Well, that's it. I don't think there's much else to do to this painting. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please like, share with your friends, and subscribe. That helps the algorithm find me, and it helps my channel grow. And thank you very much for watching.